always think as we begin a new semester, I know high school you've been at it a little bit longer, what type of thing can we get off to a good start, talk about? And there's this abundance of things that comes to my mind. Obviously, this week is our Fall Push Week, the first Sunday, so I kind of wanted to preach about soul winning and go that route just to encourage us. We hear messages about this, but I don't know. I guess let me ask this, because high school you don't need to include this. How many that are in college have pretty much been in church all your life? Let me look. So basically, you can put your hands down. Only 2 have not been in church all their lives. So you, for the most part, from the very beginning, including high school, including myself, we have heard just about every topic, whether it be taught, preached, instructed in some form. In a sense, we've heard it all. And so sometimes when I'm praying about what the Lord would have me to preach, I struggle because we know what the Bible teaches, generally speaking. And I think what happens is we become overwhelmed as we heard a couple messages last week, and then you'll hear messages this week, and then Sunday, and all these different things. It's almost like the Christian life has become a list of do's and don'ts. And I think that's a dangerous way to live, because what happens is, kind of like that rule book that you read, or should be reading here real soon if you haven't read it already, it just piles up on you. And so every time you hear a message, it's like, okay, I got to start doing that. I got to start doing that. I got to start doing that. And you can't keep up. I'll just be honest with you. I can't keep up with it. And I'd like to hopefully simplify some things. I heard a preacher this summer, and he got up, and it was it helped me, because he said something to this effect. He said, a baker, what does a baker do? Bakes. All right, it's pretty simple. A pilot, what does he do? You said fights? A typical pilot does what? He flies. A seamstress. A teacher. You don't normally say a teacher do lifts, weights. But he went through this list of things, and then he said a Christian, and nobody really knew what to say. And I think sometimes, if I were to say, Levi, what does a Christian do? A couple things would pop into his mind. What would pop into your mind? Hopefully something pops in your mind. What's that? He walks with God. Michael, what does a Christian do? Follows Christ. John, what does a Christian do? Get ready, I'm coming to you next. Spreads the word. Valerie, what does a Christian do? Reads his Bible. Amy Jo, what does a Christian do? Lydia, what does a Christian do? So we got all these things that they do. And so when you say a pilot flies, and a seamstress sews, and a teacher teaches, and a baker bakes, a Christian... And I think sometimes it really helps us if we can narrow down what a Christian does. So I'm going to take that idea and kind of move along, because if I were to say, what does a Christian need, we'd hear all sorts of answers as well. I'd like to take this time and kind of give you something very specific that I think a Christian needs. Would you agree with me today that a Christian needs the power of God in his life? Would you agree with that? You've probably heard a lot about the power of God. Picture the Indy 500 track. If those cars are getting ready to go around that track, however many times they go around the track, and when the starting flag drops and the gun goes off, all the drivers get out of their vehicles and start pushing them around the track. It'd be quite humorous, Because you understand, hey, guys, there's a whole lot more power hidden underneath the hood of that vehicle. They might be strong. They might be buff. They might have a lot of energy, but it would take a real long time to get around the track. And while we understand, and you have heard, no doubt, messages about the power of God, I wonder sometimes if we're in the same boat when we realize, you know what, the preacher gets up and says, you know what, when you go out soul winning, you need the power of God. When you live your Christian life, you need the power of God. And we say, amen, and we agree. But yet when we go out, it's almost like that drive where we jump out and we start to push through this life. And I'm not denying the fact that you don't put energy out there. I'm not saying you don't sweat, and I'm not saying you're not diligent. I am saying you're not using what God has allowed us to have, His power. And so I think if I were to say, what does a Christian need? I think all of us this morning would agree we need the power of God. I'd like to talk about that this morning. Let's pray. Lord, we venture into this week, and we come to Thursday, and we have an all-church canvassing time. We come to Sunday, and we'll be taking the buses out, trying to bring in people, bringing new people in. We have Sunday schools and junior churches and special services throughout the course of this place. And I think people very much understand that the power of God must be here. And I pray that we would be encouraged today to understand it's accessible, it's available, and that we could take some things to encourage us from this message to help us. I ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. I'm glad that every day is not empowered youth at our church. I'm glad every day is not camp. I'm glad camp starts typically on Monday nights and ends Friday, and you can send all the kids on their merry way, and you can recover for the next 2 days. But can you imagine if 365 days a year it was youth conference or camp or special meetings? You would be worn out. And there's a mentality today, so I'm trying to find the proper balance here. There's a mentality today that the Christian life's got to be, and just screaming and yelling, and it's got to have this flow of activity. And just from yesterday, there was no yelling and screaming, and I can already see it's not, it's, So sometimes with that in mind, the Christian life brings a sense to people that have grown up in church of almost a dullness. Like, okay. We'll just do what we've got to do. And I really don't believe that's the way the Christian life ought to be. I believe the Christian life should be a life where God is answering prayers pretty regular. Do you agree with that? I do believe that the Christian life is Satan fighting and attacking us. I believe the Christian life where brothers and sisters are constantly encouraging one another, and there's life and there's activity. I believe the Christian life ought to be where the lost are involved in our lives. They're seeking something. They're looking and say, what does he have that I'm missing out on? The church ought to be growing in the Christian life. And I think sometimes we go to our churches, and as I travel, I'm burdened because churches are seemingly just kind of okay. And the churches obviously made up are Christians that are just okay. And in a sense, it's like they wist not that the power of the Lord was departed from them, and we just kind of casually go through our life. And I hope as you begin training, or maybe in your second or your third year, you're saying, man, I want more than just dullness or just, I want to see God do something in my life. I don't think that's wrong, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you can bring the Bible to me and show me. But man, teenagers, don't you want to lead somebody to Christ? I hope so. I don't think we should just be satisfied with, okay, ho-hum, and this is the way our lives ought to be. I don't know if I mentioned this to you. I was at Mercy's church there in Illinois this week, and so I mentioned this, but Titus went to get his sports physical, that specimen of strength right there. And he went, they checked his weight, they checked his blood pressure, and then they took him to the hallway, and they said, all right, read whatever line you can read. And And I thought he was kind of joking because he's like, they said, how about line 6? Mm-mm. Line 5? Mm-mm. And the letters are getting, and I think it was line 3. And I'm sitting there like thinking, I'm a bad parent. I don't know if he's ever had a vision test, and here he is. He's like, the letters are this big. He's like, Q, and it's a Z. And so he's able to read line 3. And so I'm thinking, well, the lady's like, he ain't passing his physical. So I run him over to Walmart, get the vision test over there because it was cheap and it was fast. And so they put the world's biggest glasses on him. They start going through this test. Click, click, click. What's better? 1, 2, 2. What's better? 3, 4, 3. And they started going through this test. And after a while, he was writing some things down. The doctor was writing things down. And then he says, all right, click, 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 click. Now, read such and such line. It was the small line. And he just read right through it. And I'm just amazed. Here I am. My kid lives in my house. He reads all the time. Never has complained about his vision. But yet he couldn't see. And so we go get glasses, and I'll never forget, he goes back into the room, he gets weighed in, gets his blood pressure checked. He goes in the same hallway. Where are they? There you go. I can see you. And he puts his glasses on, and they say, read whatever line you can. And he reads, I think, line 9, letters this big. Now here I was with my child in my house, never having a clue that he couldn't see. And the point is this, sometimes we come to church and we get involved in the activities, but we're missing some things. We kind of just feel, you know what, I'm okay with the way things are. I don't think we should live that way in our Christian lives. There needs to be something where we desire and say, I'm missing the power of God. Now, I don't stand before you as somebody that says, you know, I know all about the power of God. I'm not one to talk about this topic, but I am one that says, that's what I want. I want the power of God. John 14. Verse number 8 says this, Philip saith unto him, Lord, show us the Father, and it sufficeth us. He's like, if you just show us God, we'll be satisfied. I don't think Philip was saying, Lord, you're not enough. I think Philip, no doubt, adored the Lord. He enjoyed being around the work of the Lord Jesus Christ. He enjoyed being one of His followers, but he said, I want a little bit more. Would you show us the Father, and it'll be enough for us? Jesus saith unto him, have I been so long time with you, and yet hast thou not known me, Philip? Known me, emphasis on me. He that hath seen me hath seen the Father, and how sayest thou then, show us the Father? Believest thou not that I am in the Father, and the Father in me? The words that I speak unto you, I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwelleth in me, He doeth the works. Now, we're going to get down to verse 12 of our text, but he says, believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father in me, or else believe me for the very work's sake. So here's Philip. He's seen some wonderful things. No doubt he's seen Jesus walk on the water. No doubt he's seen Lazarus raised from the dead. He's seen Jesus go down and touch those lepers. He's seen the needy being taken care of. And I have to say that was probably a pretty exciting life for those 3.5 years. But Philip had this idea, I need more. And Jesus says that when you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Look at verse number 12. Verily, verily, or truly, truly, I say unto you, he that believeth on me. Now watch this. The works that I do shall he do also. Notice the next phrase. And greater works than these shall he do, because I go to my Father. Now I think there's a promise found there. You look at the life of Christ and you say, wow, wow, wow. You read the book of Mark and you'll find a miracle after miracle. And Jesus says this. Look at it says in verse number 12. He that believeth on me, the works that I do shall he do also, and greater works than these shall he do. Man, these verses kind of grabbed a hold of me to think, man, I would have loved to just been around Jesus, seen what He did, be involved in what He did. But what He says is, you believe in God, you have faith, watch me, you're going to do greater works than those. Man. Now, wouldn't it be wonderful if we had a group of college students, a group of high school students, that God was just working in wonderful ways on the route that you help in your homes, in your neighborhoods, wherever it may be. You're seeing people saved, not for pride's sake, but for God's glory. I think Philip asked a reasonable thing. I think most of us today, man, I really want to see God work in my life. I do. The Bible tells us, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Now, flip over to 2 Kings real fast. I'm not going to read the entire text, but here in this particular text, I see a man that was posed a question. He was walking along with his master, Elijah. Elisha knew that his master was leaving. Others knew that his master was leaving. I don't know if they knew exactly how it was going to take place. But Elijah asked him a real simple question. When I leave, what is it that you want? Now think if you had that question posed to you today. Maria, I'm leaving as soon as chapel's over. Whatever you want, you can have. Her mind starts spinning. I wish Jake would leave me alone. I don't know. I wish I can, be transplanted back in Canada. I don't know what would happen, but Elisha was posed with this question. But we know what he asked for, right? He asked for a double portion. A double portion. Now you might say, well, that's prideful, that's whatever. But I think he looked and he saw the things that just Mount Carmel alone would be exciting to me. I don't know. That's like junior church starts flowing through me right about now when I think of Elijah on Mount Carmel. When he saw, and the Bible doesn't say Elisha was there, but even if he wasn't there, no doubt Elijah probably talked about that story. I'll never forget, man, those 400 guys started jumping around on the altar. They started taking those lancets and they started cutting themselves. I'll tell you what, I remember taking the barrels of water, taking them, pouring on the altar, and 4 is not enough and 8's not. Let's just throw 12 on for good measure. Oh, it's great. I'll never forget repairing the altar. I'll never forget kneeling down and praying just a 60 or 70 word prayer. And I'll never forget then the fire of the Lord fell and it consumed the offering and licked up the water and all those. Man, do you think Elijah was excited about that? And Elisha sat back and he says, man, that's what I want. And I don't just want that. I want more than that. I don't think that's wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, all you that are smart and intelligent, but I think there needs to be something in our lives where we can expect God to work in our lives. That's what I want, and that's what I want for you, more than me. Man, I want you to be able to leave this place and not say Fairhaven, but say God. And I challenge you on Friday night, man, find God. Don't find just a staff member, find God. And when you do, watch out, because He wants to start working, Jake. And He doesn't want to wait till you're 25. He wants to start working right now. And you can see the power of God right now. Let me help you real fast. How to gain the power of God from this text. There's other passages that talk about the power of God, but I think we can learn a couple things. I'll give them to you quickly. To gain the power of God, devotion to God and His leadership is necessary. Look at verse number 2, verse number 4, and verse number 6. And Elijah said unto Elisha, tarry here, I pray thee, for the Lord hath sent me to Bethel. And Elisha said unto him, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. So they went down to Bethel. Verse number 4, Elijah said unto him, Elisha, tarry here, I pray thee, for the Lord hath sent me to Jericho. And he said, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. So they came to Jericho. I hear pages turning. We're in 2 Kings chapter number 2. Verse number 6. And Elijah said unto him, tarry, I pray thee here, for the Lord hath sent me to Jordan. And he said, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. So we have Elijah actually encouraging Elisha to stay put. It kind of reminds me of Brother Schwenke's message about Naomi coming to Ruth and saying, go back. Now we heard a very negative picture of Naomi. I don't know what day it was last week. But there was still something that Ruth observed in her mother-in-law or in her husband or in her father-in-law. I don't know in the time that she knew him. There was something in her that said, I don't want Moab. And isn't that wonderful, the mercy and the grace of God? In spite of us, there are people that still say, I want what he or she has. Are you with me? In spite of us. Sometimes I get so discouraged at my weak Christianity, wondering why my kids would even want what I have, because I'm up and down, up and down, up and down. In spite of us, God still can use us. He can still empower us. But Ruth says, no, I'm not going back there. Elisha says, no, I'm sticking with you. Now listen to me, let me encourage you. Some of you say, I want to be a preacher. I want to be a missionary. I want to be a Christian school teacher. Can I encourage you? Get close to the people that are doing these things. Stick with them, learn from them. You're not going to learn how to be a preacher from a 7th grader. Sorry, 7th graders. Elisha said, I'm sticking with you. I'm talking about devotion. Stay close to the Master. And understand this, when you get serious about the power of God, there's going to be others that will question what you're doing. Look at verse number 3. And the sons of the prophets that were at Bethel came forth to Elisha, said unto him, Knowest thou that the Lord will take away thy master from thy head today? He said, Yea, I know it. Hold your peace. Verse 5, And the sons of the prophet that were at Jericho came to Elisha and said unto him, Knowest thou that the Lord will take away thy master from thy head today? And he answered, Yea, I know it. Hold your peace. Again, I don't know how they knew. I don't know the whole background for this, but there was an understanding that Elijah was going away. There's going to be people that, as you get serious about the power of God, they're going to try to sway you. Preachers' kids. Sons of the prophets, we can call them that. Why are you so involved? Why are you jumping into everything that's going on? I mean, we're just here for education. Can I say this? Let me put a plug in. Education is wonderful, but part of your training is going to be just the practical, hands-on, everyday doing things that work in the church. It's extras. But why are you doing that, man? Let's just go do this. Get involved. Why are you always trying to be there in youth pastor, you brown noser? I've heard it. Why not be around the people of God? What's wrong with that? Elisha said, I'm sticking with the people of God. So devotion to God and His leadership is necessary. Number 2, to gain the power of God, your desires in your life must be right. Verse number 9. And it came to pass when they were gone over that Elijah said unto Elisha, Again, ask what I shall do for thee before I be taken away. And Elisha said, I pray thee, let a double portion. What would you ask for? Oh man, a new roommate. A more comfortable situation. Nobody probably would say, I want the world, but really by the way that we live screams out, that's what I want. I hear different things, and let me just stop here. This is extra. This is not in my notes. But I hear people, they come to me and say, do you know what such and such, you know what they do on Facebook? I'm like, nope, no idea. And I have people that are not here following Fairhaven Baptist College students and telling me what they like on Facebook. And you know what? When they tell me, it kind of bothers me. Now, I'm not there. I can't say it. I'm going off of somebody's... But there are people outside that aren't living for the Lord that have an understanding of what your testimony ought to be. What it ought to be. And there's things with... If I were to go and commit adultery, you'd say, oh, but there are people that are living in fornication openly, and some of you are thumbs-upping them. And I thought they were preparing for ministry. And just because they were a friend to you and they liked you and blah, 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 you're thumbs-upping them, and I scratch my head and say, why are we thumbs-upping them? Something's wrong, folks. And so when you say, I want the power of God, you're going to be different, because the sons of the prophets, they were watching and they were viewing, and they came to try to dissuade him and say, don't be so serious, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what they said. But I'm concerned. I'm concerned, folks. I don't care if this person is nice or not. I had a guy, I got a text a week or two ago. I was driving a bus. The text said, I just saw bus 109. It reminded me of Fairhaven. I didn't recognize the number. 317 area code. I'm like, that's an Indianapolis number. I didn't think bus 109 went all the way to Indianapolis. Maybe they needed some new riders. I don't know. And so I kind of asked back and forth, who is this? They responded. They told me who it was. I said, oh, man, I haven't talked to you in a long time. We'd love to see you come back to church. And this was the response. It was a young man. He says, well, me and my husband wouldn't be welcome at your church. Ah! You know, I didn't thumbs up him and say, well, Now, we can grasp that understanding, so that's bad. But because it's a friend or a family member, for some reason, even though it's open sin, we're still thumbs upping them. Are you with me? But I guess I'm concerned that there's people out there that have openly rejected the Lord and the way of the Lord, and they're coming to me and they're saying, I heard about some of your students and I saw this and I'm like, that's not good. That's a bad testimony. Are you with me? Now I got quiet in here. And I know I'm supposed to be nice and have this fancy, nice sermon, but if you want the power of God, you better stay devoted to the things of God and stick with that and not be jumping out and kowtowing to the things of this world. What do you want, I ask today? And you might say, well, I want the power of God, but kind of the way you live is screaming, I don't want the power of God, I want the things of this world. I live that way sometimes too, so I'm not just preaching at you. Do we want the power of God? Elisha said, I want more than the power of God. I want a double portion of the power of God. Your desires in your life must be right. What if God said today, hey, I want you to give up your boyfriend? Girls. I don't know what it is, but would you be willing to give it up for God? What's your desires? Let me give you the last one and I'll end. To gain the power of God, you must have devotion. Your desires must be right. And lastly and quickly, divine faith is necessary. Now let's get out of the Becca flashcards just for a moment. And understand this is the Word of God. This is truth. Verse 14, Elijah has gone away. His mantle has fallen down. Elisha's grabbed a hold of it. And he comes to the bank of the Jordan that had just been split as they crossed, and now he's got Elijah's mantle in hand. Now, if that were me, and it's like, all right, I got to test this, I might kind of do like throw the mantle on, like, I don't know, because I'm thinking, what if it doesn't happen? Because we know, I think it's verse 7, there were spectators. This is faith, folks. And I'd like to think, the Bible doesn't say he reared back and wound up, I don't know, but he took that mantle and he smote the waters and the waters parted, and what did the spectators say? The spirit of Elijah doth rest on Elisha. You study Elisha's life and you'll find that he did double the miracles that Elijah did. Even when he was dead, there was a group of men, they had a dead man with them, and they saw a group of Moabites coming, and they were hiding from the Moabites, and they had to get rid of this body. They threw that body into Elisha's grave, and as soon as that body hit the bones of Elisha, he revived. He was dead. Now watch. And God was still doing miracles. Man, you talk about an exciting life. Even I would love to be in my funeral. Somebody walk by and they get healed because they just touched my hand. or touch my brow or whatever. But there's nothing worse than being a spectator. I had a really hard time yesterday refereeing. I'm going to play. And doesn't it get old when you only hear of your pastor or somebody else talking about God working in their life? I want to lead somebody to Christ. And maybe you say that's a prideful thing. I don't know, but don't you think that's part of the Christian life? But there's a lot of spectators viewing saying, woohoo, the spirit of Elijah that rests on Elisha, and they missed the whole point. And I think we're safe to say they were in Bible school. Yeah. And so, Jericho, you can look back over the course of this year, and you can maybe view Jeffrey, you can maybe view Jesse, you can maybe view Larry, Lawrence, whatever they want to call you, and you can watch as after this they come and they plead with God, and they go back to the room and say, God, I want the power of you in my life. I want that double portion. And you can view from a distance, but you can watch in their ministries, yes, even now, on Sunday, the next Sunday, after Fall Push, God working in your life, you can say, wow, that's pretty amazing, awesome. Dude, I don't know whatever words you're going to say. And you can miss out. I don't want to miss out. And I urge you today to get serious, Cooper, to get serious. And so that's what I want. I want the power of God in my life. I need to be done, but think of the life of Christ. Just to have been there would have been pretty exciting. But he says, He'll do these works when I'm gone, and greater works. Brother Mitchell, you run the harvesters, right? You have a crew of people come, but wouldn't it be just exciting if God just began to move in your life? You got to want it. And so to simplify our lives, other than a Christian needs, and we hear 25 different answers, can I simplify it to say that we need the power of God? I need the power of God. I hope that's an urgency you have, and you can begin to see God working right